of marriage differ from person to person. Some will say union of lives, some will say bond of love, some will say life imprisonment, and some will say something else. Matrimonial laws in India were based on English matrimonial law at the time they were drafted, as they were drafted by Warren Hastings in 1772. However, there is no single uniform code of law for marriage, rather we have different laws for different religions. For Hindu we have the Hindu Marriage Act, 1955-3, for Muslim the Muslim Personal Law, Shariat, Application Act 1937-4, for Christian and Parsi the Indian Christian Marriage Act, 1872, 5 and the Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act, 1936-6, respectively. For the one who don't profess any religion we have the Special Marriage Act, 1954-7, to govern their marriage. Hindu Marriage Law. Marriage under Hindu is considered to be sacrament bond and is union for upcoming 7 lives and is not subject to dissolution because it is not a mere contract between man and woman. The Hindu Marriage Act, 1955-8, amends and codifies the matrimonial law among Hindus. This act applies to Hindu, Buddhist, Jain or Sikh. 9. Act states capacity to marry, and these conditions are mentioned in the section 510, which says there should be no spouse living at the time of marriage, which means Hindu culture does not entertain bigamy. Bride and groom at the time of wedding must be sound mind, give their free consent and are not insane. Both must have completed the age of 21. 11. Don't relate to each other within the degrees of prohibited relationships and are not sapindas to each other. Section 712 defines the ceremonies to be performed in the Hindu marriage in order to solemnize, which are Sagai, Kanyadan, and Saptpadi. Sagai is a ring exchange ceremony performed by bride and groom. Kanyadan is an emotional and sentimental ceremony where a dad donates their daughter to groom and transfers his responsibility to groom of her daughter. Saptapadi is the ceremony where bride and groom take 7 rounds of the god of fire in Hindu religion, where sacred fire acts as invocation and meanwhile priest chants sacred texts mantras. When the 7th step is taken, the marriage is solemnized in Hindu religion. Forms of marriage. The ancient Hindu law recognized 3 kinds of marriage which are valid and regular. These were Brahma, arranged marriage, Gandharv, love marriage, and Aswar, bride sold by father for money. Brahma marriage is known to be the arranged marriage where a father and family members of the girl finds groom for her. This kind of marriage is mostly practiced in past times, and marriage of bride and groom will be done according to the Shastric rites and ceremonies. Gandharv marriage is also known as love marriage, where bride and groom voluntarily unite and marry according to their choice irrespective of their father's choice. This kind of marriage is practiced in the modern time and according to Shastric rites and ceremonies are being performed. Asur marriage is forced marriage where a bride is sold by his father to groom and his family. However, the current Hindu Marriage Act 14 does not include such forms of marriage in it, as the people in today's world do things according to their choice, not as per their parents' choice. And also time is changing and parents also give importance to their child's choice and understands that they have to live together, so let them decide themselves.
Muslim marriage law. Muslim law is largely uncodified in India as Quran is silent or incomplete. Muslim marriage is a civil contract where 2 persons enter into contract with the view of sexual pleasure and legalization of children. The Islamic concept of marriage is different from Hindu marriage, as in Hindu it is sacrament bond, but in Islam, it is a contract. Essentials of a valid Muslim marriage. Proposal and acceptance. Proposal in Urdu is stated as ijab and acceptance of the proposal as kubul in Urdu. Both ijab as well as kubul has to be done in same meeting and in the presence of proper and competent witnesses, otherwise it will not be a valid marriage. Competency of parties. Both parties must attain their puberty, which means they must be major. Bride and groom must be of sound mind while performing nikah and should be Muslim. Free consent of parties. While reading nikah, free consent of both the parties is required. That means consent must be free from coercion, fraud, mistake of fact. In order to term is free consent. Dawar or mahar is defined as the sum of money or property given by husband to his wife in consideration of marriage contract as a mark of respect to the wife. Free from legal disability. Under Muslim law, marriage is not permitted under certain circumstances, and thus restrictions, prohibition can be divided into three parts: absolute prohibition, relative prohibition, and miscellaneous prohibition. Muslim marriages are classified into four. Sahih marriage or valid marriage. It is the marriage where each and every kind of conditions are fulfilled in order to known as valid marriage. Fasid is irregular marriage where irregularity if removed, then this type of marriage could be converted to Sahih marriage. Grounds for Fasid marriage are marrying to a fifth wife, marrying to the woman who is undergoing adat, marrying without proper witnesses, marrying to a woman who is idol worshipper. Batil is void from the beginning and cannot be converted to valid marriage after removing irregularities like Fasid marriage. Grounds for Batil marriage are woman practicing polyandry or marrying to man who worships fire, couples sharing common ancestors, man marrying his sister-in-law during the lifetime of his wife. Muta marriage is a temporary marriage and the object of contract is enjoyment, and time period of it must be fixed with proposal and acceptance in the same meeting. Dawah should be fixed. Muta marriage with Hindu women is considered to be void.
Christian marriage law. The Indian Christian Marriage Act, 1872 codifies the matrimonial law among Christians. Indian Christians takes place in church in the presence of witnesses as well as clergymen. They exchange their ring, take vows while reading of the Bible take place. Conditions for certified Christian marriage. Section 60(16) of the Act states the Christian marriage condition, which is as follows. The age of man and women must be 21 and 18 respectively. Neither of the party shall have living partner. In front of licensed person as stated under section 917, and two credible witnesses other than such person, each of the marrying party must say to each other that they accept each other as their better half. Solemnization of marriage. According to section 4, 18 marriages done between Christian or non-Christian will be solemnized according to the sections in the Act, and any marriage without provisions stated in the Act shall be void. Persons authorized to solemnize Christian marriage. Section 519 states the Christian marriage to be solemnized by whom. Time specified for solemnizing marriage. Section 10:20 states the time for solemnizing the marriage, which is from 6 in the morning to 7 in the evening. Place of solemnization. Section 1121 permits the clergyman of the Church of England to solemnize a marriage in the church unless there is no church within the 5 miles from the shortest distance from such place. Notice of marriage as per Schedule I. Section 1222 states any of the party is supposed to give the notice as mentioned in the I schedule of the Act to the concerned minister by whom the marriage is going to be solemnized. The notice must contain the important information such as name along with surname as well as profession, residence, dwelling place of both parties along with time they lived there, church chosen by them for solemnization of the marriage. Publication of such notice. Section 1323. When the notice reached to the minister of religion, he shall affix the notice in the church. Procedure of receipt of notice. Section 1624. Once the notice is fixed in the church by minister of religion, he must send that notice to each of the other marriage registrars in the same district or as given in the Act. Issue of certificate. Section 1725 states when minister sends the notice to the either party to the marriage, then he must make the declarations as per section 1826. Issue of certificate should be done only after expiry of 4 days from the notice delivered and parties fulfilled the lawful impediment in order to get certificate. Solemnization of marriage. Section 2527 of the Act states that after the certificate issued as per section 1728, in front of 2 credible witnesses, The minister is supposed to solemnize the marriage in any of the form of ceremony he adopts. Section 2629 states that if the marriage is not solemnized within the 2 months from the date of issue of certificate issued to the parties, then the marriage will be void and a new certificate should be issued to the parties.
Parsi Marriage Law. The Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act, 1936 codifies the matrimonial law among Parsis. There are various ceremonies performed in the Parsi wedding. Some of them are bride and groom have to face each other and a curtain is placed between them and rice is thrown by bride and groom on each other while priest chants the prayers. Priest will be asking the certain questions to the bridegroom and witnesses which will include whether the consent of the couple is free or not. After answering of the question, priest will recite blessings. Essentials of valid Parsi marriage. Under Section 333, given. Party to the marriage should not be related to each other in any of the degrees of consanguinity or affinity as stated in Schedule in I. Parsi marriage ceremony of Ashirwad, to be performed by priest in the presence of 2 witnesses other than the priest. Male should be of 21 years and female should be of 18. If the above conditions are fulfilled, then the child born out of this union will be considered as legitimate. Section 434 explains remarriage is unlawful if the party to marriage has not divorced their earlier partner. Section 635 says about the certificate and registry of marriage. Both parties to the marriage under this act after solemnization of marriage must be certified by the priest, which should be signed by priest contracting parties as well as 2 witnesses after paying of the fee of 2 rupees by husband to registrar. Registrar must enter the certificate in his records. The Special Marriage Act, 1954. This act allows inter-religion marriage registration in order to known as valid marriage. This act is secular litigation. Section 436 of the act explains the conditions for a valid marriage under this act. Section 437. Both of the parties must be single at the time of marriage, which means they must be divorced or there should not be spouse living of the parties. Section 438. Both the parties must be sound mind in order to give their free consent. Section 439. Both the parties must not subjected to mental disorders. Section 440. Both the parties must not subjected to attacks of insanity. Section 441. Male must complete the age of 21 and female of 18. Section 442. The parties to the marriage should not relate to each other within the degrees of prohibited degrees unless any custom governing each of them permits between the two. Section 443. When the marriage is solemnized in state of Jammu and Kashmir, then both of the parties are Indian citizen and domicile in the territories. Section 544. Notice of intended marriage. Parties of the marriage whose marriage is solemnized under this act shall have to give notice to the marriage officer as mentioned in the 2 schedule of the act, and at least one of the parties should reside for a month immediately after the date on which notice is delivered to them.